What is your favorite animal? The cheetah, the dog, or for some, maybe even the cow. But do you know what the most interesting animal on the planet is? And it's not mammals, the dinosaurs, or even the megalodon. Game journalists, a peculiar species that have stunned and baffled scientists for generations. They are the only mammal to come from the pig and the snake family. Due to their filthy and disgusting genetic makeup, it is awe-inspiring that they are still able to look human and use human speech. And oh boy, do they say the darndest things.
Okay, that's enough of that. Recently there's been a lot of talk about a certain game and how its combat is bad and too easy, or that it's a mash and slash. Seeing how game journalists reacted to this was annoying, but it wasn't all that surprising given their normal track record with reviewing games. But seeing the general audience split between those who actually agree with them and people who enjoy the combat finally made me get off my butt and start working on the video I've been meaning to make for a while now. And that video is, people don't know anything about action games, and I feel like it might be the fault of the Soulsborne series. The Soulsborne series. Hooray! But before we get into that, we actually have a sponsor today. And no, it's not a VPN or a new set of headphones. You know, it's a game you might have heard of, you might not have, just a little game called Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is a huge free-to-play mobile RPG. So you don't gotta spend your check, or your allowance, or those quarters that you found on the ground. It's all free. They've got over 700 different champions with different builds that you can try on them. With over 15 different factions you can choose from, over 400 million players in 190 different countries. They've also got 12 imposing dungeons to conquer, engaging PvP combat, regular updates, endless customization for different artifacts, team composition, and strategies. And Raid Shadow Legends is available on both mobile, desktop, and PC. There's also a new challenge coming to Raid Shadow Legends. A fearsome new boss was just added, Akumari the Phantom Shogun. This undead general is guarding everything you need for accessory ascension. A new feature that allows you to upgrade your gear to even greater heights. And if you've somehow missed out on the new animated limited series, Raid Call of the Arbiter, then you can check out all 10 episodes on the official Raid Shadow Legends YouTube channel. With all of these new things and even more coming to Raid, if you haven't started playing yet, then it might just be time to start. Use my link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses, like the epic champion Talia from the Sacred Order faction, and other useful things like energy refills, a skill tome, and an XP booster. So hit that link, download the game, and maybe we'll meet on the battlefield. But until then, let's get back to the video. Obviously this isn't the fault of the game, but more so the players. And this mindset isn't anything new, it's been around since before even Dark Souls. But since its release over time, it's become more prevalent. If you're in the action game community, then you probably know exactly what I mean when I say this. The only kind of action games that get any sort of praise from reviewers, game journalists, and casual fans are usually Soulsborne games, the new God of War series, or games that to a certain extent follow a similar design philosophy. Games that are difficult for the average player, with a combat system that isn't all too deep but well done enough to enjoy. Maybe even add a pinch of spectacle to that, and gameplay that forces you to use your moves, and you got yourself the perfect action game, according to Kotaku, and Polygon, and IGN, and Twitter, and Reddit. And while this is all fine and dandy, I think that these kind of people go to other action games and say, this game didn't force me to use my moves, so it's just smashing. Shows a lack of creativity on their part. Some games purposely don't force you to use everything that you have in your kit, because they want to give you your tools and let you experiment with what you have.
Well, of course, this game is trash. It doesn't even let you properly min-max.
Can you min-max some fun? Can ya? What's the proper build path to touching grass? A game shouldn't have to tell you when to put the square block in the square hole, like a game assignment says. You as the player should want to experiment with how far you can go with the systems that are handed to you. But instead it almost just seems like people are just playing games like it's a job, and not like it's an experience, one that you should be enjoying. But when no one's there to tell them how to enjoy it, they get lost. So what they do instead is come together with all the other people who aren't thinking about what they're doing and combine like Voltron to give the exact same opinion every time. And when a new action game comes out, suddenly everyone's got a PhD, an MD, and an STD in combat, and they just have to let you know about it. I just find it funny as well because you can see what you're getting into gameplay wise during gameplay trailers and showcases. But people don't actually know what makes a game's combat good. If I brought up a game like, I don't know, Bayonetta, and asked what made the game's combat so good, what would people say? Would they bring up things like movement variety, freedom of expression, physics, weapon design, weapon switching, enemy design, dodge offset, or even the bounce mechanic? No, probably not. Even when Final Fantasy XVI was announced, no one really talked about the game's combat until around this year, and that was only because Ryota Suzuki, or the Devil May Cry guy as they like to call him, worked on it. And even then, when I watched other people's reactions online about the game after having this knowledge, it was never about the combat. It was mainly, whoa! You can like run up the guy arm? Wow! Dude, this is like game of the year or something. Whoa! Jingle jingle! Now, one thing I can slightly understand is people wanting something harder on their first playthrough. But you have to understand that when it comes to this, it's not an issue of difficulty, but an issue of replayability and accessibility. Having a deep combat system is great and all, but if people feel overwhelmed by everything that they're given, then they just won't use anything at all. Just look at Dante from Devil May Cry. Not the entire series, but from the 5th game. The guy has 4 styles, 12 weapons, and around 140 moves with different properties that change whether you're in Devil Trigger and in your base form, and has 2 different kinds of parries you can learn and use against enemies. It's just a lot. It's a lot. As a new player, if you had to learn a character like him while fighting hard enemies and bosses, wouldn't that be discouraging? And when it comes to replayability, oftentimes action game devs will add more to their games on higher difficulties. Whether it be new enemy spawns, giving enemies and bosses more moves than they had on the base difficulty of the game, or just more aggressive enemies overall across the board. This gives players something more challenging, while also giving them more to learn and a new experience to the game they already completed. They aren't like Soulsborne's where it's hard from the get-go, and the replayability comes from your builds, weapons, challenge runs, or even making new decisions on your next playthrough. It comes from you, and your willingness to learn and break the game you're playing apart. There are people, myself included, who have 200, 500, 1,000, 2,000, even 5,000 hours in these kind of games and are still playing them because there's an infinite amount of replayability, and the only cap on it is you. Which leads me into another big ol' issue. Game journalists and reviewers. You know that your first playthrough is not the full game. Why would you go out of your way and review it anyways? And I get that you guys are all scrambling to get it out as fast as you can for the good likes and clicks and ad revenue. Oh yeah, oh baby. But why not state that you didn't actually play through the full game and what it has to offer? It's not like it's gonna make people think less of you than they already do. The bar is pretty low. That's like staring at a painting and going, this sucks, even though you're standing right in front of it and only looking at one color and not the full picture. It makes the game look bad, it makes you look even worse, but that's probably not going to change anything because of money. Yay, money. Anyways, said my piece, game journalists are terrible. And if you don't like these kind of games or their combat, then that's fine. Just don't go around saying they're button mashers because you don't want to experiment. Remember people dunked on DSP and how he didn't want to experiment in Tears of the Kingdom? That's the same thing, except you guys are DSP. That's all I gotta say though, video's over. Well, I guess I can also do the YouTuber thing.
Did you know that only 5% of the people that watch me are subscribed to me? That's terrible. That's an epidemic and a crime. You're going to hell unless you subscribe to me. Please. Oh, please subscribe to me. Please. Oh, I need it. Oh, I'm working on it. Okay, I'm done. Bye.